A few weeks ago, as I was preaching for the feast of the conversion of St. Paul, as I was going through the readings, one of the things that really struck me was sort of what happens with Paul. Obviously, not the conversion. That's something we were celebrating. But sort of how Paul saw Paul and how others saw Paul. Paul knew what his potential was. His potential was to listen to the Lord and was to do just what the Lord would want him to do, which for him was, well, to destroy the Christian church. I mean, that's why he was going from Jerusalem to Damascus. And the Christians knew what Paul's potential was, particularly towards them, that he was going to make their lives miserable and that he was someone who at all costs had to be avoided. Because Paul had made clear what he was planning to do as he stood at the feet of St. Stephen and watched him be murdered with stones and agreed that that was a good thing. But a funny thing happens on the way to Damascus. God has other plans for Paul. And on the road, he, of course, encounters Christ in the light, and from that, can't see. But he's told by God that someone will come to him, Ananias, and will heal him. And when Ananias hears from the Lord that he wants him to go to Paul, Ananias' first reaction was, well, God, we know what this man is trying to do. He's trying to destroy us. And God makes very clear to Ananias that he has other plans for Paul. It doesn't matter what the world sees. It doesn't even matter what Paul sees. All that really matters is what God sees. Because as we hear in the Old Testament, as God describes David, Samuel looks at David's brother and thinks, oh, he's the one that God's going to anoint the new king. And God's response is really clear. Man looks at the outside. I look at the heart. And the same thing was going on with Paul. God saw something in Paul's heart that neither Paul nor the world could see. And what happens? Ananias comes. He baptizes Paul. At that point, Paul can see. And Paul goes from the greatest persecutor of the church to its greatest missionary. Paul went from seeking to destroy the church to building it up. Paul went from rejecting Christ to fully embracing him. And that's the reality of our faith. God understands our potential far better than we can. Far better than the world can. The world has its expectations for us. We even have our expectations for us. And the truth and the reality is, many times, we're just simply wrong. Both the world and Paul were wrong about what his true potential was, of what his true calling was. But God was patient, and God was ready to just wait until he could find the right moment, to allow Paul to become his instrument, to allow Paul's full potential of faith to be seen and realized, and to be lived out. So often we can get caught in that same trap that Paul was. We see the world through our eyes. We see the world through the world's eyes, but we don't see ourselves through God's eyes. We don't see the world as it can be. We simply see what we see. All of us have far greater potential than we realize. All of us have potential that can only be unlocked by God. But we need to be open to that. And for all of Paul's faults, even as he was trying to destroy the church, there was one truth about Paul that stayed consistent. He was open to God. And that's what's seen in his conversion. And that is really what conversion is about. It is about our willingness to simply be open to God and to where he will lead us. When Paul encountered Christ as he did on the road to Damascus, it changed his life. And each of us need to be open to Christ in the same way. He is there for you. We simply have to see it. We have to recognize him. We have to hear his voice in our life. And know this, he is there. He is talking to you. The problem is, sometimes we don't listen very well. And with that, our true potential stays locked within us. Let us open to that life of conversion. For that is what the Feast of St. Paul's reminds us of. Our life is a life of conversion, and it is a conversion to Christ. It is opening to the potential that is within you. And know this, have no doubt about this. You have far greater potential within you than you realize. All you have to do is let God unlock it. God bless.